It's just so surprising how different ways you can write a song. Sometimes you start with a lyric. A title is the way many people write. They get a title and go from there. But the inspiration really, I think every songwriter will tell you it comes from nowhere.
Welcome back to How Much Can I Make? I'm your host Mirav Ozeri, and today we're diving into the colorful, cosmic world of music with none other than Kate Pierson, founding member of the B52's and a true icon of rock and pop. You know her voice from classics like Love Shack and Rome, but today, Kate is here to talk about something new, her 2 solo albums. You just heard Pillow Queen. It's my favorite song from her album Radios and Rainbows. We're gonna find out what inspires her, how she brings her wild creativity to every note she sings, and what it takes to launch a solo work after decades in a legendary band. So let's dive into the music, the magic, and making of it all with Kate Pierson. Kate, thank you so much for willing to do it and give us time.
All right, Mirav.
I want to talk to you.
Always available to you.
Great. I want to talk to you about your solo albums. You know there's some songs there that I love.
Yes.
And we just heard Pillow Queen, which is become my favorite song now.
Oh, good.
I love it. I listen to it.
I know you're a big Pillow Queen fan.
I love this. I love this song. So, first tell me, what inspired you to come up with your solo albums?
It's something I always wanted to do. And when I was in high school, I had a band called the Sun Donuts. It was a folk protest band. My father was a guitar player. I always knew I was going to be a musician from the time I could think.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
I used to sit when my parents would go anywhere. Very rarely would they go anywhere, but whenever I was in the car, when I was a little kid, I would stick my head out the window like a dog, and I thought I was writing the most fantastic songs. I would sing to myself, and I would turn the garbage can upside down and play drums, drove my father crazy, and I would play the tuning harmonica, and I took piano lessons, and then I switched to guitar. And so I always knew I wanted to be a musician. Long story short, the path was circuitous to get there. I always played music, but to get to be a professional musician, the path was winding. But I arrived as part of the B52's, and we wrote most of our songs collectively by jamming, which is very unusual. I don't know of any other band that really writes so much collectively, because usually with a band, maybe there's one songwriter, or the band will jam,
right,
and then one person is the singer and writes, all the lyrics and stuff. I mean, it can work so many different ways, but it's rarely such a collective experience. We just started the band by just one night of having a flaming volcano, and then we started jamming. And we came up with a song, and then that's the way we did it from then on. We just started jamming, and it was chaotic, but we'd tape it and find these great parts and put them together, kind of like a collage almost. And a lot of our early B52 songs were just patchwork together parts, but that's what made us unique, and so very unique and interesting. Our song structures were not regular, our lyrics weren't usual, because they came out of a stream of consciousness, kind of collective stream of unconsciousness, or the unconscious, the collective unconscious, whatever you want to call it. It came out of nowhere. So I've always, it was since the early B52's, I thought I'm going to write a solo record, but I really lost myself in that collective kind of thing, where I felt like, I can't really write anything on my own. And I tried various times.
You just got insecure about writing on your own?
I don't know what it was. It was just a strange locked into the band. And the part of it, I think, was I was afraid of alienating the rest of the band, or if I did something solo. But even just writing on my own, I didn't know how to approach it anymore. And I used to write songs in high school and in college. Somehow I just got, and we were very busy, of course. We started writing and together, and we wrote our first album, and part of our second album, we went on a big tour right away, and we were just kind of going. So not like there was a lot of downtime, but it was my dream to do a solo record, and years passed, and tours, and many, B52's albums and so many tours. I just kept my suitcase open, basically.
And as you were traveling with the B52's, were the songs cooking in your brain that you thought, oh, this will be my solo album, or you gave it to the band?
Well, nobody really gave anything to the band. Nobody ever came in and said, hey, I've got a song, except for a few songs that Ricky wrote. Very few songs that were sort of written by just singular or two of the band members. Robert Waldrop wrote some lyrics for some of our songs, and so it was an exception to the rule. But I wasn't getting ideas. It just wasn't the sort of creative urge to do something myself. It was strong, but it wasn't coming to me. The long story, not made short, is that there was a time when the band had a lull. And also Fred had done a solo record. He was the first one to do a solo record. And it really caused this rift. It was a time when we weren't kind of doing anything because we took breaks in between sometimes. And Fred decided to do the solo record. It was a little bit secretive and it caused a rift. And, and I got caught in between, of course, just trying to make it all like I do, all good. So and then that part of that, I think, because we had such a family dynamic, that was part of the reason I couldn't write on my own. I felt like it was going to, in my own mind anyway, it was like a betrayal.
Right.
So there came a time in the late 90s, like 98 or something, we weren't doing anything. We were just sort of drifting a little bit and in between records. And it was after Ricky died in 1985. In the late 90s, there was just a lull in the band. And this band called the Plastics were kind of a counterpart to the B52's. They were a Japanese band, very colorful, really interesting, unique songs, and they had a sense of humor and great visual effect. So they opened for us early on. And we maintained a friendship with them. And around about 1998, one of the members of the Plastics had become this huge producer in Japan and asked me to be part of this project, to come to Japan. And I was like, yeah, why not? So they also asked this woman, Yuki, from Judy and Mary. It was another huge Japanese band. And she was also in a lull. We got together. I went to Japan. I wrote a song with Yuki. We didn't sing the same language, but somehow it just worked so well, collaborating with Yuki and Sakuma-san and writing these songs. And then when I came back from Japan, they sent me a bunch of tracks and said, why don't you write 4 songs and she'll write a few songs and we just sing them together and you write a couple of songs together. And I had this 4-track tape recorder. I had, a little recording. At that point, I did have a little recording system in my house and I was starting to my creative juices were starting to go. And I wrote those songs and I flew to Japan. I was still working on them and we recorded them. It wound up going to #1 in Japan.
Wow.
We toured all around, all different cities, and we called it the Noodle Tour because I love Japanese noodles so much.
You sang some in Japanese?
I sang a little part in Japanese. Yeah, that was really fun. And Yuki sang some songs, sang in English too. It was very successful. And after that, I realized, hell, I can write with anyone. If I can write with someone who we don't speak the same language, and as I said, we don't sing the same language, I can collaborate with anyone. It really opened up my mind. It was like it blew my mind that this worked so well.
Incredible.
So after that, I started embarking on some writing with some different people. I got some great songs and some songs that just came to me, and I had different people I collaborated with. So I had a whole album's worth of songs, and this was still late 90s. And then I took it to our manager and said, I really want to do a solo record. And he said, oh, you can't put it out because Warner Brothers, you're under contract to Warner Brothers, and you can't put that out. And I think Cindy at the same time, Cindy from the B52's, was also wanting to do something. He told her the same thing. We're waiting for the president of Warner Brothers is going to change. It's some BS thing. Really, he just didn't want me to do it because he wanted the B52's to tour. He didn't want any distraction from that.
That's terrible.
I know. So he basically squelched the whole thing. So I felt really disheartened by that. And then we started touring, relentless touring again. It was the story of my life. We were always, doing a lot of touring. And I kind of put that on the back burner. I had to. And then when Monica and I, we were together for quite a while. And then at some point we met Sia, our friend Sia, who's a very famous now singer-songwriter, and she's really known for her songwriting.
She's also great, yeah.
We became friends, and Monica said, Sia, can you help Kate fulfill this dream? She's always wanted to put out a solo record. And she said, sure. So we went to L.A. We were also starting Lazy Desert, so we camped out there. We got a camper. We got an Airstream. And I went on these writing sessions, at first with Sia. Thank God for GPS, because I would go to all these different places, Studio City and Burbank, and I said, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm following this GPS, and I would drive. But at first I went with Sia, and we would go to different songwriters that she had collaborated with, and they would do the instrumentation. Well, the first song was with Sia and Sam Dixon, and we wrote Every Day is Halloween. And that's the very first song we wrote together. And he just had a guitar, a bass. I think he was just playing a bass. It was just playing bass lines. And I had that title. And I did have a lot of the words. And Sia is just an amazing way of puzzling together words in a different way, too. And she took a lot of the words I had, and we fit them. Something I learned from her, especially writing solo, is to really get a melody first. That's the most important thing, is
really,
the melody.
The melody first.
And even if you have lyrics, you might think, I've got a verses and chorus, and I've got it all laid out here. It's really hard to write a song like that. Some people do, I guess, but if you get good melodies, you can fit your lyrics into that. You might have to change them around a lot, but still, it's much more interesting to do that, because what people hear, I think, is first the melody. How many people know the lyrics without the melody?
You're absolutely right, yeah.
They hear the chorus, they know the chorus lyrics, but other than that, sometimes people don't really absorb that till, they're really into a song and listen intently. So we wrote together, Dallas Austin and Sia, and I wrote Throw Down the Roses, which is one of your favorite songs, Rob.
That's right.
I know. We wrote that together.
All she wrote. I stick around, I won't wait around for the ending. Another curtain closes.
And I also worked with Nick Valenci from The Strokes on a song called Bottoms Up on my first solo record. So there were a lot of different collaborators.
Bottoms up with the top down. If the skids then you rebound. Count the points as you run down. All your friends one by one. Bottoms up with your sweet self. When the drive is a test. While you
Pretty soon, Sia's career started blowing up, and she couldn't go with me anymore, and I just started going on my own. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet this person I've never met and write with them, and it worked every time. It worked like magic. Take Me Back to the Party actually was written back then, too, with Jimmy Harry, who's a very famous songwriter. He wrote a real big hit song with Madonna.
wasted all alone. I don't wanna go home. Without you, I can't face it on my own. So take me back to the party, baby.
So a lot of these people were songwriters that collaborated with a lot of different people. Sia's manager arranged a lot of it, and Sia had already worked with most of these people, and then he suggested a few people that she hadn't ever worked with. And one of the people I worked with was Chris Braid, who turned out to be one of my main sort of sources of collaboration, and we really hit it off, and he had a very beautiful chord changes that really resonated with me, so I felt like I could write really great melodies. And I wound up writing 4 songs on Radios and Rainbows with Chris Braid, because I gathered for Guitars and Microphones, the first solo album, and I gathered together the songs, a couple of songs that I wrote when I was talking about that solo album that my manager was squashing. So I had written a song called Always Till Now, and I wanted to put that on the album, so I re-recorded that.
I met him at the laundromat. He flashed me a smile. We sorted out our dirty laundry and talked for a while. We put the money in and watched our clothing spin. I kissed him by the folding counter.
I wound up doing all the songs with Tim Anderson, who I wrote Pillow Queen with.
Oh.
And he has a studio. He was in a band called I'm a Robot. And we worked in his studio in L.A. And that was really fun. I had a little sort of job where I drove on Sunset all the way to his studio every day, and we would write and record. And it was just so magical and so much fun. So it was all produced by Tim Anderson. So it was more homogenous, I guess, the sound of. And I really don't believe in that so much anymore because the B52's had several different producers on Cosmic Thing, 2 producers, that is, but not Rodgers and Don was. So it really doesn't make that much difference unless you have someone their production is like very heavy-handed or they have a signature style of production like Brian Eno or something.
Right. When you write songs, your voice is an amazing instrument by itself.
Thank you.
But do you use any other instruments?
Yes. I mean, the magic of songwriting, aside from the collaborations I did with other people, most of the time, again, they would have the instrumentation.
Right.
And I would just listen. And a lot of times I didn't want to listen to it over and over. I would really want to record what my first impressions were on the very first time I would hear it, and I would record that. And a lot of times that's when a lot of magic happened because you don't expect what's coming in the melody, and I would hit on some things that were just more unusual type melody, something I'd be surprised by what was happening. And I would just jam to that. My ear would go to lock in with the melody and the chord changes in a different way than if I just heard it over and over and over again. I might just get a melody just stuck in my head and I couldn't get out of that. This way, my voice could go in different directions. It's just so surprising how different ways you can write a song. Sometimes you start with a lyric. A title is the way many people write. They get a title and go from there. But the inspiration really, I think every songwriter will tell you it comes from nowhere. You don't know that it's coming. It comes from your life experience and from, yes, all the things in your life, but it's not necessarily something you expect. It would be surprising, like when I wrote If You Give Your Heart to Science, which was with a track that Chris Braid had written. And the melody was so beautiful. And I did think of that title all of a sudden. And then it became about my good friend Jeremy Ayers, his death, which is something I never planned. I never thought in a million years, I'm going to write about how he died. But he died in his garden, and he did donate his body to science.
Oh.
And so I wound up, it just unfolded when I was jamming with this track that was so beautiful. The lyrics just came out. And that's how it kind of works with me anyway. I think this first impression of the music I hear.
Your heart was beating, but you weren't breathing. Shovel in your hands and bleeding hearts to clap. If you give your heart to science, I will give you mine. If we listen to the
But now, things have changed now. All of a sudden, I'm getting sort of back to where I was way back
As a kid?
as a kid.
Wow.
And songs have just come to me while I'm walking Loki in the morning or just...
Loki is the dog.
Yes,
Just
Loki is our German Shepherd.
Right.
Monica and I have this big, beautiful German Shepherd. And we walk him every morning in the woods. And a lot of times just I'm walking, and all of a sudden a melody will come to me. And I have a little recording app on my phone, and I record little snippets. Or sometimes I'm in my studio just playing the piano or guitar, and that's the way an inspiration will come to me. A lot of times a lyric will come to me at the same time. It's fascinating how that happens. And my wife Monica suggested I write a Christmas album.
Right.
And I thought, I have one Christmas song I wrote for the Levon Helm every year. This beautiful concert that we give that's a benefit for the women's shelter, and it's a holiday themed. And I wrote this Christmas song called Christmas in a Rocket Ship. And when Monica said write a Christmas album, I thought, that's kind of, how can you write a new song about Christmas? There are all so many songs about Christmas. How can I write something different? Well, then when she put that seed in my mind, I started coming up with all these crazy songs about Christmas. One's about elves, and one's about a magic Christmas tree, and one's about what you do on a snowy day. And they're not children's songs, but they have a sort of naive quality to some of the songs, to some of them. But I have 7 songs so far.
Wow. And how many do you need for an album?
10. So I have 7 going on 8, and I find it a little bit limiting to say I have the intention of writing a song about something specific, because I feel like, oh man, then I might not be able to write that. But I want to write a song about holiday food. You know, everyone's different holiday for Hanukkah, what you have for
That's
Hanukkah.
a great idea.
And why the whole reason for having holidays is for food.
How do you know when a song is finished and it's done? Because as with writing, any kind of writing, you can go back and polish it and again and again. How do you know when it's done?
Well, when you have to record it, then it's done. I just finished recording this song, The Elves, a very fun Christmas song for all ages, but I still was tinkering with the lyrics in the very, very last minute. And when I was in Marco Benevento's studio, and Lee Falco was playing drums, and I said, I can't get this one line. It's just so awkward. I want to rhyme with Blitzen, because it was a line about the reindeer.
Okay.
You know, Donner, Dancer, and, you know, Rudolph, Donner, Dancer, Blitzen. And anyway, Lee Falco chimed in, hey, what about this? So that finished the song, because that lyric he just suggested.
Oh, okay.
Now that I think, well, it's done now.
Right.
Because I recorded it. I mean, you can always go back, but you just don't want to overthink it.
Why was it 9 years between guitar and microphones and the radio and rainbows?
The reason there was such a gap, and I wondered that myself, because people have asked me that so many times, and I'm like, oh, I was busy. But I looked at my calendar before you got here, and I was like, started with 2015, and I was just, I pressed on day every week. And it was like going to L.A., going to Vegas, going to Houston, I went through every year until I got to, I think it was pandemic lockdown was
2020, March 2020.
March 1st, right?
Yes.
2020. I got to that date. And up to then, I had been touring so much.
Oh.
And I started pulling songs together in July of 2020. And then September 26th of 2022, we did a farewell tour. And then we had our Vegas residency. So in between that time, during the pandemic, I was pulling the songs together. And I didn't want to put it out during the pandemic. It just felt like not right. And so I wound up finally getting it all together. I had to re-record some things. I worked a couple of days in the studio with Tracy, who's the bass player for the B52's since Cosmic Thing, and Sterling Campbell, who's also been a drummer with the B52's since Cosmic Thing, and Ken Murray, who's been with the band quite a while. So we re-recorded a couple of songs that were demos. And then we had some time, and I said, let's just jam. When I've never written anything with them. So I said, let's just play around. And they started jamming, and I came up with this song, Dream On. And that's another unexpected thing. They were just starting, playing bass and drums and keyboard. And
and a song came out
came
of
up
it.
with the song Dream On. I didn't have the title either. I didn't have anything. I didn't go through my list and think, oh, I'll try this, this title. It just came up, Dream On, and a song, an anti-war song.
Dream on, keep on keeping on. Hearts and minds and oil mines.
Of course, I know you have fans, thousands and thousands all over the world. When you write a song and you want to come up with a song, do you think about the fans and their expectations?
No. You can try. I think a lot of people try to imitate something recent hit, and I'll make it sound like that, and that could work. But when the B52's we had after Ricky died, and we thought the band was at its end, and we started writing Cosmic Thing, we actually made a vow that this was not going to be for radio or a hit. It was just for us. It was just
nice.
healing. And that was the most kind of healing experience, but it was also a success because it came right from our hearts.
Right.
And that it has to come from your heart, I think, and it has to come from this place of pure creativity without kind of thinking of commercial kind of value. And especially as an older artist, I could care less now because, I really, all I want is for people to hear my music. Yes, I want that. But my goals are different, in terms of not really, I don't want to go in a big world tour, and I don't want to. I just wanted the music to be heard, and it's so different now, the landscape of how you can get your music out there. So everything's different.
I want to ask you about that. But before we go to that, I want to know, are there any songs in any of the solo albums that you have that is particularly personal to you?
Yes.
Which one?
Higher Place is very personal because I was in a relationship before Monica that was emotionally abusive. Again, not planned to write a song about that, but I wound up writing a song about that that's about being abused, but finding this higher place and also finding empowerment in other women. And that's not a thing that I planned on either. So that just came out too. And that was just a kind of amazed me. But I wrote that to a track that Chris Braid had. And the chord change was so beautiful. And it just came to me, take it to a higher place. And it's very personal because it starts out with this lyric, I was abused, feeling so wronged. I didn't know I could be strong. And that's the most personal lyrics I've probably ever written. Always Till Now is about a relationship I had too long ago with the artist Tim Rollins. And then the beauty of it all, I really wrote for Monica because I felt like that's this song where together we're sort of walking on treetops. And so I feel like a lot of the songs that I wrote for this album were the most personal.
Money-wise, what does it take to make an album today?
Not a whole lot. A lot of people now, which is
that's surprising.
Complain as we may about technology and the record companies and the record stores and all this stuff is gone. And I don't miss having to search for a payphone, that's for sure. But the technology now allows anyone to make a record in their bedroom, basically. I mean, think about
Billie Eilish.
Right. Yeah. You can have a really simple setup now with the technology. You could just do it all on a computer, basically. But I really like having real instruments.
And what about releasing an album? How do you release? It seems like there's so much out there. How do you stick out?
That's difficult. I spoke to several people who are in the industry and pretty high up in record label land, and one of them told me, we don't sign anyone unless they have a presence on TikTok and have a lot of followers for their music. It's
really?
Like an audition now. I mean, record labels used to have what they call A&R people, right, who would go and they'd have an ear for music. They'd have an ear for music, people like Seymour Stein, or Chris Blackwell, who would know how to sign someone. They'd hear somebody that was unknown completely. And now, basically, you have to do it yourself. You have to get your own audience. You have to put your music, write music, get it out there. And if you can get an audience and following on TikTok, then you can get the interest of a label, and a lot of people don't even bother with a record label because you can put it out yourself, too.
Right. Did you put out yourself your solos?
No, I'm on, it's called Songvest Records.
Okay.
And so it's a little label, but it's been very helpful to have that. I just felt like it was nice to have. I mean, they did the vinyl, they did the CDs, they have some distribution.
Yeah,
and
it's a different story, right?
Yeah, so it's nice to have a small indie label, but you can put a lot of stuff out yourself. Some people think, it's so sad that you have to get on TikTok, but it really is just like a giant audition. In a way.
Right.
You used to go and play, and you'd play in clubs, and then you'd start getting an audience. And if people liked your music and you started getting crowds, then the record labels be like, I think when the B52's started, record labels thought, what the hell? They sound so weird, but they've got a huge following. Kids are loving it, so we'll sign them. But it is really hard to get through the noise. I mean, it's incredibly hard. And there's, it's mostly young people on TikTok, and you can do some stupid things on there and get 1 million followers, too. Just kind of try clothes on. Maybe I'll try that.
No, but how can you monetize a release today? I mean, there's only streaming. I pay monthly to Apple Music, and I don't pay you for your song.
Well, this is the sad part.
Right.
You really can't. I mean, the only way you can monetize it is if you have a monster hit and you have millions and millions of streams, because a million streams won't get you much. People mostly make their money touring, and that's why you see people touring all the time.
Okay.
And merch is a big thing too, selling merch now. I mean, a lot of artists rely on touring and merch. That's the only way to make money.
Wow.
Unless you are Beyonce, or, you have a huge monster hit. Also, advertising, sync, they call it, so you have some kind of song in a movie or a TV show. It's still a great source of getting your music out there and getting, income.
TV and commercials and film is the big money, right?
It's good money. It depends on who you are, how much they're going to pay for your song, or how big a hit, if it's a huge hit. But it's not that much. They picked Rome for this Marriott Bonvoy ad, and they re-recorded. So that's another thing. If they re-record it, you get less, but also unless they use the original. And if they use the original, Warner Brothers owns the masters, so they get half of it.
Half?
Yes.
Oh,
a lot
ouch.
of, like Taylor Swift just re-recorded all her songs.
Yes.
And that's the reason, because now she owns the masters.
Pillow Queen should be sold to some sort of, not My Pillow guy, but anything else.
If My Pillow guy offered me $1 million, I'd say no. Fuck off, Pillow guy. But yes, I mean, it's hard. I think it's hard because you can't really control it. It's really hard. You can't pitch because they're creatives too. Amy Sherman Palladino did Gilmore Girls, and during the pandemic, Monica and I had never seen it, and we decided to watch just like a million seasons. And they wore B52's T-shirts, sometimes in some scenes, Go-Go's T-shirts. They played a ton of our music. They played some of it in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Like, she really likes those 80s bands. And so that was just because of her, her taste and what she liked, and the music director.
So you need to get lucky.
So yeah, you just really need to get lucky, and if you have a hit song, then it's likely to be used. Like Rome has been used a lot, and they re-recorded this version of Rome. It's unrecognizable. It's very soft. So that's kind of really nice, because it doesn't necessarily associate that song with Marriott. Every time you go to Marriott, you think, oh, Rome.
The best thing with Rome that I saw was on NASA TV. They had footage of Mars, and the rover was going, and they were playing Rome. I literally got goosebumps when I saw it.
I saw that, and that was the best use.
That was amazing.
Mars sync.
Right. So, what surprised you the most about your solo journey?
How much fun it was, how liberating and not really stressful, although there's some, just trying to get it all together and finish it and everything's a little stressful. But basically, it was just fun. Like, I felt liberated. I felt like, wow, to be able to create songs outside of the B52's, it just felt so good, and it was so much fun to work with other people and collaborate, and especially the songs I've been writing just on my own, that from my own head, the whole thing. That's been kind of a new development. So I'm just really reveling in that kind of feeling of having the muse come to me.
Right. I've seen some of your shows where you played the solo music, and the audience was singing along, and I was wondering, how do they know the lyrics already?
I'm glad.
And you played the new album. Does it excite you when you see that?
Yes. Oh, yeah. If they know a song, especially, in my solo recordings, and people do, they're out, the songs have gotten out there, and they're played on radio, and people dismiss, that's another thing, record companies do not have radio departments anymore. And I was like to my label, hey, let's, I want to get on this station and that station. And like, oh, we don't care about radio anymore at all, because it's all about TikTok and getting, social media. I still think radio is super important. I hear a lot of music, a lot of new music from radio, and listening to my independent WAMC, WOMR, the Outer Cape Radio, and FMU, and just all these WDST, Radio Woodstock, and Radio Kingston. They play really great music. They have really great music programming. and it's eclectic. It's just a good source for me of hearing new music. So I can't even fathom. My mind cannot wrap around that. Radio is not a good thing to do.
What would you say is the biggest challenge of releasing your own and being on your own without the backing of the band?
The biggest challenge is, I think, getting live shows, because someone just told me, I have a friend who's is just there are two of them, two musicians, and they said they were trying to get club dates, and the club wouldn't book them unless they could guarantee they could sell X amount of tickets.
How can they guarantee it?
I don't know, but basically for my solo shows, I had to really drum up my own. I mean, I had a publicist, and she's great. You know, she would suggest things, I would suggest things, or try to do interviews. I'd have to hustle to kind of make sure people knew about the show. It's not so much they wouldn't come, they don't know about it because there's so much going on. There's Bands in Town, that's an app that you can put in your favorite artist and you'll get an alert if they're playing nearby and stuff. But there's so many venues, even here in Woodstock. I can't keep track of all the different things that are happening. So
Right.
to get out, get your music out there, to get people to know that you're playing and then get the audience in, and also the cost of paying musicians, unless you're a band and it's all for one and one for all. And if you go do a gig and you don't make any money, then, you all share in the no money. But I have to pay the band, and I want to pay them. I have to pay the hotel room and the travel and the rehearsal. And as a solo artist, you would get all the money, whatever comes in.
Right.
But it's hard to even break even, I think, for a solo artist now, especially an indie artist starting. I don't know how
do they make it?
just, I guess, in a way, like the B52's did in the beginning, on a shoestring, or you really have to pump your social media. You really have to invest your time in that and get out there maybe and play live. But that's, like I said, that's expensive. I know people who are folk artists, and they play folk festivals, and they play little smaller venues, and they make a living. There are all sorts of ways to make a living, even if it doesn't get you rich. But just to actually make a living as a musician, even if you're a wedding band, or I just played at a friend's wedding, and there was a wedding band. I sang when they were coming down the aisle, but I sang with this smaller band that played while people were being seated, and then there was a reception wedding band, and this was in Mexico. But, people can make a living playing weddings, playing bar mitzvahs and whatever. So, I mean, it's rough, though. It's hard.
You've been at the top of all of it with B52, but what success looks to you now?
I think success for my solo record is just the satisfaction of getting it done, writing the songs, getting them out there. Success would be to have more people hear my music. Like, success would be to get a song on a popular TV show, or ads. It's a little dicey because, what product is clean and clear anymore? You
Right.
don't know. You don't want to sell
Right.
soap necessarily, but at least soap is clean. But yeah, I think success is having people here, and like you said, people singing along, being able to play live and have people come and sing along. That was a joyful experience when I could play live. I felt exhilarated after that show at City Winery.
It was an amazing show.
Yeah, it just felt great, and have friends
Standing
come.
room only, and people were crazy. They didn't want it to stop, I know.
And it's just fun getting that reaction from the audience. And of course, I did play a couple of B52's songs, and I played Candy. But I know that people really appreciated my music and the solo music. So
Yeah.
that's really, I think that's success, when I see people singing and coming to a show.
We were talking a lot about your writing process and all of that. What about AI? Do you see songs being written by AI? Do you think you could use AI to write songs?
I've fooled around with, just for fun, because friends of mine were writing songs for a coffee house that friends of theirs opened. And they had to write a whole bunch of playlist of songs. So they used this AI, and they said it really worked out for like jingly songs about coffee. But I've tried it for lyrics, and it will get better. But for now, it's clunky, But you can get ideas, what rhymes with such and such, or what. I mean, you could say to an AI, write a song about such and such, and it will come up with verses, many verses and stuff. But it's like, it doesn't sound natural. I'm already so sick of AI. It's just like the photo thing that just came out where There are apps that are accessible to anyone where you could take a photo of I'm sitting here and now I'm diving into, I'm changing into a Firebird.
Right.
And I'm already sick of that.
Yeah.
Everything could be manipulated. Things
You
together.
think AI can fake your voice?
Yes. It might sound robotic right now a little bit. I can always tell when something's an AI voice. I can always tell, Mirav, when it's AI. But soon, I'm worried because it's so unregulated.
Crazy world we live in.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I wanted to do it for a long time because for myself, I wanted to know the story behind a lot of things. And I'm glad I got the chance.
Thank you, Mirav.
And thank you very much.
Your podcast has really been amazing.
Thank you.
Body like butter and cream. You just lie there staring at the ceiling. Strawberry icing, don't know what you're feeling. Dream on. Your cloud.
Okay, that's a wrap for today. If you have a comment or question or would like us to cover a certain job, please let us know. Visit our website at howmuchcanimake.info. We would love to hear from you. And on your way out, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with anyone who is curious about their next job. See you next time.
Just like